Hello there ladies and gentlemen, I'm Paul TX14 Walsh and welcome to some more Gran Turismo Sport, a racing game developed by Polyphony Digital and published by Sony Interactive Entertainment for the PlayStation 4. Focusing on the game's online mode, known as Sport Mode, in this episode I take a look at my performance in the first race of the 2019 Manufacturer Series pre-season, which was held at the Kyoto Driving Park, Yamagiwa Miyabi circuit. This was a race in the Group 3 category, with my vehicle being the BMW Motorsport M3 GT. With that, let's get racing. Okay, so taking a look at the grid, you'll see there's 19 cars, of which we qualified 16th. There were 20 cars in qualifying, but somebody dropped out between the qualifying and the race for whatever reason. In terms of my qualifying experience, quickly summed up, I was actually quite pleased with my qualifying, not because of the lap I did, but simply because it was my first time ever going into a qualifying session where there were 20 cars out on track, all trying to qualify and avoid each other at the same time. And I can honestly say I didn't get in anybody's way, I kept out of the way of everyone, and at the same time I did create myself quite a bit of space in order to do my qualifying lap. The lap itself was done the hardest of the two tyres available. We had the racing hard or the racing medium available. I went for the racing hard. Honestly, I just could not get the racing medium tyre to work. I appreciate it would have been the faster tyre with the greater grip it offered, but I just could not get it into a sweet spot to work for me. But on the racing hard I felt more comfortable. My lap was a 2:23.6, 1.9 seconds over the best lap I did in my qualifying simulation runs where I was out on the track by myself at 2:21.7. But as we're going down the order here, what we'll see is that 2:21.7 would have put me in 15th rather than 16th, so I didn't really lose out in that regard, only being beaten to 15th by the Lexus, as we'll come past them shortly. And this race was 7 laps, going on the harder tyre. What I decided to do was do an extended opening stint of 4 laps and then go for a shorter stint of 3 laps towards the end to try and gain on those who pitted early and therefore would be fighting tyre wear as the race went on, try and pick up some late ground. We'll see that behind me in 17th is a French player in another BMW M3 GT, Grid 320, shout out to them, and it was my secondary aim in this race to try and beat them and be the best BMW on the grid as a result. A little bit of friendly rivalry there. But more importantly, my primary aim of this race was just to enjoy it and bring the car home. It was my first time ever racing the FIA pre-season, and I thought let's just give it a best shot, try and finish where we start if not a little bit higher, and see how it goes. All of it is a learning experience at this point. The guys at the front are going to be very fast, whereas down towards the back, E-rated driver in terms of driver rating, can't expect too much, just do what we can. Be one of the back runners. Now it's a rolling start, and as we're coming around out of the final corner here, we're about to begin, and I make a very small mistake to begin with, which is I go a little bit wide onto the curb, and that cost me a slight amount of time. Nothing too major, but what it means is I'm not as close to the Lexus in front as I could have been going down the main straight here into turn 1. And that means I've cost myself a little bit of speed which I could have picked up in the slipstream, using the Lexus to effectively tow me down into the first corner and make sure I've got a bit more speed on the guy behind, who in turn I want to try and avoid them being within 1 second of me so that way they don't get a slipstream pull from the rear of my car. Going through the sweeping section here, lifting out of turn 3 as I typically do because I just don't have the ability to hold the accelerator all the way down as yet. I'm still working my racing line through there. Now coming up the hill and then down it into turn 6, the second of the 3 sweeping left-handers. What we'll see is that the guys in front are fighting tooth and nail for 13th place. Making a small mistake there under braking, I turned the steering wheel a little bit, almost caused me to cut the corner, but I brought it back under control, so it hasn't cost me too much time. But already we can see that the guy behind the other BMW is now 1.4 seconds behind, and the guys in front are within touching distance as we go down into the sequence of turns 7 through to 8, the 2 slow corners here, right-hander and then a left-hander. And by keeping this close, it means that as people start to spin out, they start to fight for positions, go off the track and make mistakes, I can pick up 1 or 2 places. Already picked up 1, now picked up a 2nd place, and now following the Volkswagen was in 13th up the hill towards turn 11, going through turn 9 and now turn 10. Absolutely love this pair of corners, turns 9 and 10, really fashing me down the throttle and just throw the car into the corners as we now come around 11 here, and we're going to hold back a little bit, Just make sure we're comfortable, keep our distance from the fight for 11th at this point, so 12th, 13th pushing towards the McLaren in front, because I know at the end of the day they're going to be costing one another time and I need to be ready to pounce. And I can conserve my tyres at this point as these guys are fighting one another and causing themselves to drop away from 10th place upwards. And we can see there's constant fighting in amongst the group and I'm ready there to pounce. I'm no more than a second away as they're going all a little bit sideways, coming out of turn 13, going up the hill into 14 and then subsequently breaking down into 15th. And this first lap has not been too bad as we come into the final third of the lap, going down to second gear here for turn 15 and then gradually eking on the power as we come out the corner here. Not too aggressive, very tight corner, got to get it right. And now coming down the hill here into turn 16 followed by 17, the left-hander in third gear for myself. You can see now this relatively well here, could have been perhaps a little bit lighter on the brakes there, lost a bit of speed and fell a little bit back from the Volkswagen, not too much. Now the final corner, turn 18, the right-hander in second gear before coming onto the main straight once again to initiate lap number 2. So this first lap has not been too bad whatsoever. I'm well in the slipstream of the guy in front. The Spaniard behind in the Mercedes is gradually catching me, the guy who had a bit of difficulty if I remember correctly. By looks of things on, what is it, turn 7 and turn 8. And they've caught up, they've got quite a bit more pace than myself, but I'm holding on to the back of the Volkswagen in front at the moment as the Mercedes behind goes a little bit deep into turn 1, but it doesn't cost them too much time. And now we go through the sweeping corners up the hill towards turn 6, turn 2, followed by turn 3 as I lift slightly here and then into turn 4, now back 4 on the power at this point and then finally turn 5. What we can see is I'm able to keep in the slipstream of the guys in front, they're pulling me forward, but here I make a bit of a mistake. I brake a lot earlier because I hesitate on the fact I'm taking an inside line for turn 6, what with the Ferrari taking the outside line, having had an accident and rejoining, and what it causes me to do is make the mistake of braking earlier than I should have, and that cost me the time to the Mercedes behind who just sweep between the two of us. Nice overtaking move by them, but still I picked up the place from the British Ferrari, but in return I've lost the place to the Mercedes, but I'm still on the back of the group who are now fighting for what appears to be 11th if not 10th place. So again, can't complain about this. In fact, it looks like 11th at the moment. Can't complain about this as 11th place is pulling away slightly from 12th. 12th is having to fend off 13th. That Mercedes is really pushing hard to get past 12th and get back up the order into the top 10 places. And as we come through the sweeping corners, once again 9 and 10 up into 11 here, we can see that these guys are starting to pull a bit of distance from me. And what you'll notice is that the lines I'm taking and the braking points I'm using are starting to change now. And this is not because of tyre wear. This is because of something which crept into the race for me. That incident at turn 6 on this lap, what it led to me to do was start to doubt myself. Because I made a mistake on a line that I was using through turn 6, which cost me a lot of time, I'm going to start adding little mistakes into my corners as I go through laps. Of course, tyre wear is going to be a factor as time goes on. We can't mistake that as not being a factor. But most importantly is that I start to worry about things and I start to lose concentration on just racing my own race. As the Ferrari behind is catching gradually, they go off onto the grass there, so that gives me a bit more space on them, but I start to fall into no man's land here in 14th, which is the guys in front are going faster than me because I'm holding back a bit. There, I slam on the brakes for no apparent reason really, as I'm coming out of turn 17, now going into 18 at this point to end lap number 2. The Ferrari behind is starting to head towards 3 seconds behind me as they're continuously making mistakes by the looks of things, and the guys in front are creeping away from me. They're now up to 2.1 seconds as we come onto the main straight here going into our third lap. And it means I can't really pick up the slipstream of the guys in front to pull me further away from 15th, nor am I able to continuously pull time away from 15th place simply because of the mistakes I'm making. As now the fellow BMW seems to have moved up into 15th and then they've fallen back into 16th. The Ferrari's got them on the straight perhaps, or going into that first corner. And this is something I need to work on most importantly. There's a number of things I can work on from this race, but if I had to pick one, that is do not let small things disrupt my confidence and my concentration. Just because you make one mistake does not mean your race is over. It may cost you time, as I'm making another mistake here. I'm going out much wider on turn 6 than I normally would, and that almost sends me off into the grass. I have to control it there. If you make a mistake, it does not disrupt the whole race, and instead just keep plugging away at it and just keep going. Remember your racing lines, remember your braking points, remember how you've laid yourself out on the track, and just try to get back in the fight, or at least maintain your position. And I start to do that to an extent, although I'm making some little mistakes, getting on the throttle a little bit too early on certain corners, causing the car to skid sideways somewhat. But I'm not gaining any ground on 13th at this point. I'm just sitting in the middle of 14th. 15th is not getting any closer to me, so I'm not complaining about it. All it means is I'm losing the ability to gain more positions, because I start to fall into a point where I'm not going to be able to use the guys in front to pull me towards the front of the pack. And here I definitely go wide on turn 11. I end up on the grass. I keep it under control, however I don't go slamming into the barrier. It doesn't cost me too much time, but it costs me enough time to pull me further back from 13th. I lose time on them, and in return 15th now gets within 2.2 seconds of me, and they're still gaining as we're coming out of turn 13 here, going up the hill into turn 14. And as a result, I can't hold on to 15th forever if I keep making these mistakes, and they keep infecting my racing. But nonetheless, focusing on the job at hand here, coming down to turn 15, standard affair, coming out the corner, go a tiny bit deeper on the corner than I should have, and that cost me a little bit of time by the looks of things. 13th place is now 5 seconds up the road, so I need to focus on simply finishing this stint and getting into the pits on lap 4. We're only on lap 3, some guys are pitting already. We can see that second place is pitted, but they're not important. They're so far up the road they're outside of arm's reach right now. So instead, we're just going to focus on the guys in front. Perhaps they'll pit a little bit early, perhaps the guys behind will pit early. We'll just have to wait and see. Now charging forward at this point, coming onto the main straight again for our 4th lap. We're going to be beginning it very shortly and going into the first corner. And we can see some guys are coming out of the pits at this point, a Ford Mustang in particular, who is well up the pack, most likely somewhere between 4th and 8th, I'd reckon. Don't lose too much time in the pits on this track. We can see that yellow flags initiated, overtaking's prohibited. Somebody's had a bit of an accident, looks like the Mercedes in front. And here I get a little bit concerned that the Mercedes at some point is going to render in front of me, because they were ghosting at that point. I didn't want to go charging into the back of them, send them flying, pick up penalties, damage my race, etc. So that's why I backed out there, and again, hesitation crept into my mind. On top of that as well, it was a good opportunity to let the Mustang go. Now I say this because the Mustang is in a completely different race from me. I'm a back marker. And here I make a mistake of going wide out on turn 6. I managed to keep the car under control, but the Mercedes behind her overtook because of their little incident. That means they get past me at this point. And here I try to get the place back by braking deep on turn 7, but I go way too late on the brakes. Fortunately, I control it. I don't go charging into the wall, but it cost me a considerable amount of time, and I drop back into 14th. And the Ferrari from earlier, the British Ferrari in 15th, is now going to start creeping up towards me, because whilst they've pitted, they're going to be gaining time as a result of my mistakes. It means that when I pit at this point, I'm probably going to come out behind them. And so effectively, by having that mistake, that I've not only lost 1 or 2 places to the guys behind, but I've lost, say, 3 or 4 places to the guys who've pitted and are behind in 15th and 16th. But still, we'll just keep on going. Now, coming back to that Ford Mustang, they're in a particular race towards the front, whereas I'm in a race towards the back. So by blocking them, I'd only be costing myself time. Of course, putting up a fight would be great, but does it really benefit myself if it's not a place I'm really fighting for in the end? As the Audi in front here goes quite wide on the corner, not able to capitalise on it. I get on the power a little bit early, factoring in the fact that they're skidding as well. I seem to just copycat them at that point, but I managed to get past the alley. I make an overtake, I'm happy with that. Now up into 13th as we're coming down to turn 15 for the last time before we go in the pits. So at a braking point okay at this point, and I managed to come out the corner alright. The front right tyre is really worn at this point, and it is starting to affect my ability to take some corners, and I'm feeling it as well as my nerves still creeping in. So the mixture's coming at this point, and it all adds up. Nerves plus tyre wear means that I'm going to be taking corners more sensitively, alternatively making more mistakes. Coming on to turn 18 now to wrap up our first stint at this point. Just got to get it down to 2nd gear, get it right here as we come out of the corner, come on the power gradually at this point, go for the pits, make a pit stop, and let's switch back onto another set of hard tyres, get the pit stop out of the way, and then push for the final stint. And what you'll see is when I go for fuel at this point, I just fuel myself over the little diamond to make sure I've got enough fuel to finish the race. Don't have to worry about fuel saving. That's not something I'm going to work on for the time being. I want to work on achieving consistent race performance. We stop refueling, we come out the pits. Not too long a stop. We're now down into 17th at this point. The BMW Grid 320 is in front of me in 16th. Let's get that place back if we can. Now I don't want to push too hard to begin with, because I've got to get adjusted to the car once again, because remember now I'm on full grip tyres for the time being. If I push too hard at this point I could make a mistake, because I start believing that the tyres can do magic. But you can see already that my confidence has shot up because I'm on a fresher set of tyres. I'm already starting to attack the course more compared to how I was when I came into the pit. My confidence has been reignited for the purposes of this second stint. So I'm feeling refreshed, coming into turn 6 at this point, going through it. I decide accidentally there to slow down a bit too much rather than just follow the corner through, which cost me a bit of time. It looks as though the BMW also makes a mistake, so as we go down to turn 7 we are continuing to gain on them. We haven't lost too much time. They picked up a penalty, perhaps they gained a bit too much speed there as a result of their mistake coming out of turn 6 going down to turn 7, and as they go off the track there into turn 7 it means that we pick up the place in the BMW and now we're back into 16th, our starting position. So now it's just a case of race to the finish, let's just give it our best shot and go for it. And in front of us is an Audi who seems to be on shot tyres based on the fact that they went charging off the track, well not charging off the track, they were skidding sideways considerably just before we went into the pit, so it's likely that they're trying to make their tyres go all the way to the end. They're only 3.8 seconds up the road, so perhaps we can hunt down 15 place here. We'll just have to try. Going on to a little straight here, coming down into what will be turn 12 another time. Starting up a braking point. But nothing major to note at this point, really. We're just in that middle ground to race. Again, no man's land. The fact that the guy behind is 7 seconds behind, the guy in front is 4.4 seconds ahead. In fact, they've gained some time over us by the looks of things, and we're going to have to really chop that down. Little frame skip there, simply because the PS4 was transitioning from one recording clip to another. I don't have a capture device such as an Elgato or whatever they call them these days, so instead I'm just using the PS4's capture functionality. So once the 15-minute clip's in, you can only record up to 15 minutes, I'll be transitioning over the gap to the next clip. Hope you all don't mind that. Carrying on with the racing. Sensitively going through turns 16 and 17 here. Not feeling, again, too confident. That lack of confidence is starting to creep back in, and it looks as though the German in front in the Audi is doing a really good job on a car that was skidding all over the place just before I came into the pits. And the Swiss guy is just coming out of the pits by the looks of things. So we're just coming to the straight here for lap number 6. Got 2 cars in front, and as it transpires, well, the Swiss gentleman is 5.4 seconds up the road. Looks like that Audi is really charging away. Perhaps they just had a really bad lap when we were going into the pits. So instead, we're going to be in this middle ground right now of just sitting there. The guy in front's 5.1 seconds away, the guy behind is 8 seconds or more away. So we're not really racing anyone at this point. But what I should emphasise is, just because I'm not racing anyone at this point, there's 21.8 seconds to the guy behind and 5.6 to the guy in front now. That doesn't mean I should start slowing up considerably. I should still keep trying. And I say this because remember the previous race that I showcased on this channel. I keep on going and keeping in there, keep pushing, not necessarily to our maximum, but say 80% rather than 100%. What it means is if we're able to keep pace with other cars, we're not letting that gap creep out too much, as we broke a little bit too early there going into turn 7 compared to what we should have broken, and it's cost us our speed through turn 7 and 8. If somebody makes a mistake in front, and it's a considerable mistake, we can benefit from that and we can inherit a position or be right on their tail as we go into perhaps the final lap and make an overtake. So that's something to be considered as well. Just because you're quite a way away does not mean you should give up on chasing the next place in front of you. And that's something I've got to keep in my mind. And another positive that I can definitely take from this race is that I did not give up. Despite all the mistakes I made, despite the fact I became shaky at certain points, I didn't say to myself at any point I want to quit. I've given up on this race, I hate driving. And that's something which I thought to myself at first when buying a racing game, that may happen when racing online, because I'm in 16th at 18. Somebody's quit this race midway through. I could just give up. I could just say to myself, you know what, screw this, I'm not happy because I'm losing. To me, this is winning, because what I'm saying to myself is, and just going on about this a little bit more, what I'm saying to myself is, you know what, just go for it. You can do better next time, you improve, you learn from your mistakes, you learn from experience. If you don't gain that experience, if you don't make the mistakes, then how can you ever improve and learn? And that's why I'm staying in this race, and I always stay in the races, even if I end up right at the back of the grid 20 seconds behind the next car in front. And that's why when I'm showcasing these races, if they don't go extremely well and I'm not up the front of the grid, it doesn't matter to me, I'm still going to showcase them and talk over them, because there's always something to learn. And now, coming on to the final lap at this point, going to go for it here. The Ferrari in front is just 6 seconds up the road, not too far away. But at the same time, I'm not going to bin it at this point. I'm not going to go to 110% performance here or try going for that, simply because there is no need to try and overly push the car now. Let's just bring it home in 16th, will be the place where we started. We've got ample time to the guy behind. And here I make a mistake of cutting turn number 4. And that means I pick up a half-second penalty. The first penalty I've ever picked up in a race, and I will have to take this penalty. And this actually has a consequence right at the end, which I'll explain when we take the penalty. Now, note on the timings that the German Audi, who's currently in 15th, is actually starting to fall back. And remember what I said earlier about the fact going deeper into the race means that I'm on fresher tyres and less fuel, and that means I'll be faster as we go into the end of the race, whereas other drivers may have more worn tyres, and therefore they'll have to conserve them in order to bring it home. Well, I am gaining the Saudi gradually, not at the rate perhaps as many could, but I am gaining on them. And what it means is, as we're going throughout this lap, we'll get closer and closer, and if they make any mistakes, we'll really get close. But now coming back to that penalty, a half-second penalty doesn't sound like much, but I'm about to slow. You're forced to slow it in the penalty area. The problem is with this penalty is I'm not going to lose half a second, because as we come out of turn 15 here, building up a lot of speed, I have to slow down and go down into third gear. And this means I lose roughly 1.5 seconds, I would say, on the guy in front. And the guy in front keeps changing. It was first the Audi, and now it appears to be, I believe that's the Russian flag. We've got the Russian in front, who's really lost some time, and we're having to chase them down. And if these guys are making mistakes, that 1.5 seconds I've just lost as a result of the penalty could make the difference between me coming 16th and me coming perhaps 15th or 14th. But nonetheless, we're not going to gain on them anymore by the looks of things, so we're just bringing it home at this point. Come out of turn 15, going down the hill into 16 and 17. Just keep it clean at this point. We're pretty much almost empty on fuel. Car goes a little bit wide there on turn 17. Just got a bit wrong. Now coming into the final corner, and what we'll see is the Audi in 15 is really struggling on this final corner. They're drifting sideways, it's all over the place. And now coming up behind them at this point, if I'd been 1.5 seconds closer, I probably could have got them on the straight here. But instead I'm not able to, but fortunately for me, it looks as though the Russian had to pick up a penalty, and I come home in 15th, right at the end. Upon reflection, I'm actually quite happy of how this race turned out in the end. Whilst I only finished 15th, which was still one place up on where I started, achieving my primary goal of at least finishing as high as I started, if not higher, more importantly, it's allowed me to identify the key issue that's holding me back at the moment, and that is my confidence. Nerves got the better of me in this race and led to me making a number of mistakes which, when I did all my practice simulation runs, didn't happen typically after I started to nail down my racing route and my braking points. But with nerves starting to cause me to lose my concentration and everything I practiced, as a result of that, I started to make mistakes which cost me time and cost me the ability to hang on to the guys who are heading towards 10th place and higher. I feel that once the confidence starts to really come in, then I can improve my driving performance and therefore get closer and closer to the top 10 and start pushing my way up the grid. There's tons to work on and there's tons of races to go. We've got another 9 to go with race 2 at Fuji International Speedway this Saturday. I'll be sure to bring you a video outlining my performance in that race. But until then, as always, thank you for watching. If you did enjoy this video, be sure to leave a like, comment or subscribe for future episodes. I have been TX141, and until next time, ladies and gentlemen, take care.